Hello, my friends. I am Marwa. I weave, paint, dance, write. I walk with plants, and I share these practices with everyone around me and tell my stories.
And I love cooking. Did I mention that? When I say I cook, it's not just another practice I do. It's part of something much larger that I am still trying to understand. Lately, I've been feeling like I've been weaving myself back together. Because my life hasn't been one straight line, a clear path, or a single identity. It has been many things at different times, pulling me in different directions. I record my voice and tell my stories. I weave baskets and earrings. I make herbal medicine, tinctures and balms. I make candles, perfumes, and sage bundles. I hold circles where we gather, breathe, and meditate through weaving. I dance for healing and remembrance. I walk in nature, identify plants, and sketch them like a naturalist. I paint, and that was my first language. I make pigments from rocks I find on my walks. I do knitting, beading, embroidery, sewing, natural dyes from time to time, and recently I've been interested in felt making. I spend time with Arabic calligraphy, tracing letters slowly. It's where my path with Sufism began too. And sometimes I ask myself, why all of this? Why so many directions? Why so many ways of creating? And for a long time, I thought maybe I was supposed to choose one. But now I'm starting to see something else. I feel like all of these things come from the same place. I think I'm not collecting separate identities. I'm following one thread, winding its way through warp and weft. The thread is me. And each practice is just another way of touching the same pattern from a different angle. Sometimes it is food, sometimes it's paint, other times it's plants or movement. Sometimes it's silence between people breathing together in a circle. Cooking belongs here too, as part of the same movement. The movement of trying to understand life through making, touching, combining, and listening. I think I'm not trying to become one fixed thing. And somewhere along the way, I stopped believing that things were too hard for me to learn. Not because I think I'm extraordinary, but because I kept witnessing what becomes possible when I give myself fully to curiosity and practice. Again and again, life showed me that wherever I put my hands, heart, and head into, I can make progress. And maybe this is not only about me. Maybe this is one of the most powerful things about being human. I am only remembering that I'm whole. By allowing all of these parts of me to coexist without asking them to compete. It's the act of returning home to myself again and again. After all, everything I ever created came from a desire to serve, to contribute in whatever way I could. People saw value in what I was creating and encouraged me to reach more people. When you create from a place of service, life gives back in ways that are difficult to measure. People give back, opportunities arrive, needs are met. Not always immediately, not always predictably, but with a kind of flow that makes rushing feel unnecessary. It made me realize that maybe my path was never about chasing value, but about embodying it. So today, while I cook, I want to take you through this relationship I've had with food as art. and I'm sharing a few recipes I've been making a lot and enjoying with family and friends. Ever since I was a child, I loved mixing things together. I used to sit outside with soil, leaves, flower petals, and just experimenting. I would crush petals, cut leaves into tiny pieces, mix water with dirt. I just loved the process itself. And I think that part of me never left. Only now my ingredients became pigments, herbs, teas, meals, oils, fabrics, and colors. Now there is more intention and knowledge behind what I create. And maybe this is why cooking always felt natural to me. It was never only fuel. I grew up in a house where my mother cooked for us every single day. Real meals, meals made from grains, vegetables, herbs, and fresh ingredients. We rarely ate out, and at the time I didn't really appreciate how essential that was. Well, now I do, and now I think my mom was phenomenal to nourish us every single day with that much care and presence. I think there is something sacred about that. Her kitchen was always full of life. It was Kulthum playing while onions were being chopped. It was me and my sister helping while talking about our week. It was my mom tasting the food. It was my dad planting mint, thyme, and marjoram next to the house. It was being sent to pick herbs or crush nuts. There was a lemon tree, a walnut tree, and a lavender bush, and many more. Sometimes my aunt would come and we would prepare kibbeh together, and suddenly cooking became this collective ritual. And I realize now that so much of who I became was shaped in those moments. Food carried all of that. And then I left home, and suddenly nourishment became more complicated. I tried to recreate those atmospheres around food, and sometimes I did, sometimes I couldn't. Over time, food became only something to survive on. When the fridge was empty and I was tired and disconnected, and I no longer knew how to recreate that feeling of abundance and warmth that existed in my mother's kitchen. And at some point, after getting into yoga and meditation, I started questioning everything I was eating. I stopped eating meat for years, then I experimented with different ways of eating. I tried vegetarianism, pescatarian, raw foods, tried different philosophies, and I think I was searching for alignment. I wanted to understand what makes the body feel alive, what makes the mind feel clear, what kind of food carries true vitality. And then I started meeting people who actually grew their own food. And something changed in me again. Tomatoes and carrots smelled different. Vegetables stopped feeling like products and started feeling like relationships. I started gardening. I planted beans, herbs, radishes, cauliflower, and tomatoes. Then later, I planted calendula, zucchini, corn, pumpkins, and sunflowers. And gardening taught me something cooking alone could not teach me. It taught me slowness. Cooking transforms things over hours. Gardening transforms things over weeks. It taught me patience. It taught me to observe. It's a humbling experience, really. You can't rush a seed. You participate, but you do not control. And I think this changed the way I approached nourishment forever. But then something shifted again. It began after Gaza and all that came after the war. After witnessing so much grief and devastation around us, food started tasting different. I don't know how else to explain it. There were people who were starving while the world kept going normally. And something inside me disconnected. My appetite disappeared for a while. I even stopped knowing what I wanted to eat. I stopped feeling connected to cooking. And when you feel vulnerable, other people's voices take over. One person said veganism, another said you must eat meat, another said you shouldn't eat gluten, another said healing foods. And at some point, I became frozen between all these voices. I no longer knew what was right. I tried eating meat again, but something inside me still resisted it. And recently, after trying a macrobiotic approach to food, I realized that I naturally stopped incorporating meat again. I started listening more carefully. And this process has not been simple at all, because food is emotional, it's memory, it's family, culture, it's comfort and nostalgia, especially cravings, especially the things that once made us feel safe. And I think living in this time makes nourishment even more difficult. Because everywhere around us there are fast foods and processed and empty food. And when you are tired and hungry and your fridge is empty, it becomes all too easy to disconnect from yourself. But once your body learns the difference between being filled and being nourished, it becomes difficult to go back. So, where I am now in my life is not certainty. I'm still learning. I still observe how different foods make me feel. I still pay attention to the source. I still experiment and change. And I think maybe this is the most honest relationship I've had with food so far. There is a middle ground we rarely talk about, a place where we care deeply about nourishment without being obsessive. Because sometimes food is made by loving hands, and sometimes that matters too. More than labels or identities, more than needing to say, I've been vegan for this much years, I've been vegetarian for this many years. Our bodies do not care about those identities. They care about nourishment and about what carries life. And I know it's not always easy to access this kind of food. I know it takes time, privilege, energy, and learning. But I think even paying attention is already a beginning. And maybe this entire journey was about learning how to reconnect and stay connected. These days, my gardening is much more mindful. Just a few pots on a balcony. Onions, garlic, potatoes, kale, a mint, thyme, marjoram, lemon balm. Recently, I picked a few strawberries. A small garden nourishing us in such a huge way. I think spending time tending to plants changes the way you move through the world. Because once you begin to recognize the abundance around you, the world changes completely. Sometimes I add them to my drinking water. I make herbal salts and teas or infused oils. I try distilling leaves and flowers into essences. And the most beautiful part of all of this is sharing it. Sharing tea blends with friends, cooking for people I love, exchanging knowledge. I think this too is nourishment. The point was never to arrive at one identity, my friends. It was to stay in the act of weaving itself. To keep returning to what keeps us inspired. To keep creating with our own hands. And keep listening to our sacred bodies. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next episode.